Welcome back, Libromaniacs. How are you doing today? So, let's dive right in. I'm going to start dropping knowledge bombs. Are you ready? Incoming. Here's some more stuff that. Well, actually, this isn't necessarily. If I read this, I don't know where I read this. So, normally on Libromaniac, we're talking about book knowledge, that uncommon book knowledge, cutting edge book knowledge, stuff that's under copyright, and that you can't find. You can't really, like, you can look online and somebody will have like a bad summary of it and saying why it's stupid. It's like, but all the new stuff, all the latest and greatest theories. Um, but I don't know where I read this. And so today's topic is no 400 monkeys that live forever. 400 monkeys on typewriters typing for eternity will not produce Shakespeare's work. And so that's kind of building off of one of the old last videos about the book The Forgotten Revolution by Lucio Russo. And there's a paraphrase in there about Cicero. And it says that something, I'm going to paraphrase the paraphrase, but it's essentially, if you think the universe can form from randomness, then you should also believe that by, having a bag of letters and dumping it on the ground, you'll eventually get another, like a famous work of art or a famous book. In that paraphrase, it was somebody by the name of Ennius, and it was his book, The Annals. And so they were saying, if you think that, then you should think that. He won the argument with that. Because the other guy couldn't make that argument of, I do think that. I do think that if you shake a bag of letters, because that's a form of divination. Like, people may not know that, but I believe the Sibyls, this famous oracular sisterhood of antiquity, I think at one of their oracular sites, they did divination by the rustling of leaves. I think that might have been at Dodona. And but there's also this form of divination where you have letters written on leaves, and then those are the wind blows those around, but they didn't read them. Like, they never came up with. It was always like one of the famous. There's a famous story behind this. It's in. I don't even know where it's at, but they were doing that form of divination, and they misconstrued, like, the letters were the initial letters of a sentence, of words of a sentence. So if you got like A, Q, Z, B, and R, like, that would be, you would start like, okay, the first letter starts with that. Like, it isn't spelling something, it's spelling the first letters of words, and then you get the sentence. Well, they misconstrued the last four letters, and that person, it was like a prophecy of that person, how long they were going to live or something, and then it turned out being true, but they put the letters together wrong. That principle is known as acrophony, like initial sound. So that's like a acromancy, I guess, acronymancy or something like that. But that's how they did it. Like, they never, ever, 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 ever had something come out. And that's the thing about randomness. Like, something that's random means there's no pattern to it. Like, a random sequence of numbers, there's absolutely no pattern to it. And like, people make the argument that, and persuasively so, in my opinion, that the decimal of pi is randomness. Like from my understanding, they actually used to use that as when they come up with credit card numbers, like, they were using pi somehow, like the sequence of pi out to a billion digits or something like that. But anyways, you can go online and look up the first 100 million digits of pi on certain websites, and you can do little searches. You can do Control F and say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and it'll never come up. You'll never, in that entire sequence of pi out to millions and millions of digits, you will never come across 1 2 3 4 5 6. You won't come across 2 4 6 8. You won't come across any pattern. Randomness is literally always random. It's never not random. And people say all the time that whole thing about Shakespeare, 400 monkeys, if you give them eternity and typewriters, they would type up Shakespeare's works. No, actually, they won't. That will never, ever, ever, ever happen. And I don't know where I read this, but I remember hearing, I think I was reading an article about how somebody bought the Powerball. Like, the Powerball got to a point where it was like, some ungodly number. It was like, $800 million or something like that. And the person just bought every combination. Like, somebody rich out there said, well, guess what? I'm a mathematician, or I know numbers at least, and I know that I can buy every combination of that. And what's crazy is they never buy every combination. You could do that in principle, but you don't need to buy 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 Powerball 8, because that's never happened. Random numbers are always random numbers. They never come up with that. That is never, ever, there is no lottery where that's ever come up, to my knowledge. And so, yeah, that whole thing's a farce. The whole thing with the letters. It's like you can't get order out of randomness. You won't find order in pi. You won't find any patterns there. And by definition, it can't be. You won't, like, if you came up with 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, you would say, well, that's a sequence. That's not a random number. It's literally the opposite of randomness. It doesn't happen. And that's a fascinating thing to realize, because it suddenly you realize there's all these problems now. You're like, oh, wait, well, then how did order come out of chaos with the universe? It was just the Big Bang exploded, and it was just this chaos of whatever. And then, order came out of that. Did it? And then you got the same thing with DNA. Like, the first self-replicating DNA strand, like they've taken a hypothetical, what's the barest minimum basic self-replicating strand of DNA we can create? What's the smallest thing it is? And it's smaller than, even the smallest things that currently exist, like bacteriums or whatever, or viruses. It's like, well, it's smaller than that, but it still requires, like, it can't happen. You can mathematically disprove it. If the universe is 4 billion years old, then you can actually approximate how many collisions, something like that, can happen in some primordial soup, or whether it's clay or whatever you want to have the first DNA strand arise in. You can mathematically work out and say, well, 4 billion and a half years isn't enough time. And then, well, is the universe older? Like, is the Big Bang Theory anywhere close to being accurate? Well, probably not. So maybe the universe is trillions of years old, Well, is that enough time? That's a legitimate question. Like, how does this all work? And, there are people who talk about particles that go backwards in time. And if there are, then that must be how it works. Like, where time and anti-time collide, you get DNA. Essentially. Like that's how, you get order from chaos, because these particles are going backwards in time, because chaos always, order turns into chaos always in forward time. But if there's particles that go backwards in time, and maybe when those collide with the rest of the universe, like, I always kind of picture kind of like this yin and yang, like this emptiness, abysmal vacuum colliding with infinite everything, and then you get these eddies, and these eddies are like DNA strands. But I don't know. I mean, that's just my philosophy on it. I'm a little off track here, but the bottom line of this video today is, I'll wrap it up in 10 minutes here. It'll be a short one. No, your monkeys ain't typing up no Shakespeare, ever. Give them eternity. It's nonsense. People that say that don't understand math and statistics and probability and all that. And I'm not saying I'm some big expert in all that stuff, but where and I wish I could direct you to the source on that. I mean, maybe you can Google around and find it, or get on whatever search engine of your preferences. And by the way, so if I gotta tell my audience who's listening to do three things, here's what you should do. Here's three things you can do. The first thing you can do is any informational videos you're listening to on YouTube, listen to them at double speed. Like, save yourself some time. You'll have if you spend however many hours a day you spend, basically absorbing information off of YouTube. Well, you can get that information twice as quick and have extra free time by listening to something in double speed. The second thing I'll tell you to do is just proper hygiene. This whole idea that it's natural not to do any hygienic thing. You don't know anything about the aquatic ape theory. So we'll talk about that in some future videos. And then the third thing I'd have you do is just do something altruistic. Altruism is the glue that holds civilization together. So do something altruistic. Do something to do for the greater good that you actually don't get any joy out of. Whatever that might be. Those are the three things you can do. All right, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to me refine my creativity. Until next time.